Hi YouTube. Today's video is on how to change your motor mount on a 2003 Porsche Turbo 996, and the car's about 12 years old, so it's pretty common for the motor mounts to go out on these cars. So mine finally failed. I did some research and I decided to go with a semi-solid. So I looked around and I found a brand here, NYPPD. And from what I looked at on the internet, these are about the best you can get for the amount of cost. These were about $250, actually $249 for the set, and they're billet aluminum. They come with a stainless steel rod. The stainless steel rod is pretty quality. They've got rounded off ends, so they go in nice and easy. I really like the quality of these. You got the urethane here. This durometer, the hardness to the durometer rating on this particular model that I ordered is 75A. They also have, I think, a 85 or a 90A, which is a little bit harder. But I went with the semi-solids because I've read about some concerns some people have if you go full solid with a lot more noise, a little bit rougher ride, and also I heard concerns about cracking your frame. And that was a deal killer for me. I didn't even want to go there. I planned to keep the car for a long time. So anyway, let's look at the preparation for installing these. We'll look at this here. Here's one with the rod installed. And they have a washer too that goes right over this urethane here. Also very quality. I like the thickness of it. It's solid, it's not hollow. And they still maintain that they're on their website that their unit is lighter than any other on the market, and they have 50% more urethane installed for a much more, actually, if you can say cushiony, but a more cushioned ride. So I really liked everything about these. The build quality looks excellent now that it's here, so I'm really happy. So I'm going to switch over to the car and show you what you have to do to put these in. It's actually pretty easy, and that's what will be next. All right, how you doing, YouTube? We got the cabin open here. So the next thing you have to do is you have to take out the air cleaner, the air filter, and disconnect the wide pipe intakes. One's here and one's over here on this side, and we'll take a closer look at that. And you want to disconnect your mass airflow meter. Once you've done that, you'll have access to the top side of the motor mounts. There's 2 bolts on each mount on the top and 1 on the bottom. The top bolts are 13 millimeter, and the bottom, actually it's a nut. The bottom nut on each one is 18 millimeter, and you want to use a deep socket for that because the stud sticks out a little bit. So a deep socket 18 millimeter for the bottom nut, and there's 2 13 millimeter bolts that are on the top side of the motor mount, which we'll show you next. Now, another thing you want to do, and I'll show you the underside as well, is you want to support your motor with a floor jack. They have that in place already, but I'll go down and I'll give you a closer look. You want to support the motor with the floor jack because the way these engines are mounted, they're hanging from the motor mounts. And I think that may be how some of them get damaged. People are lifting their cars by the motor instead of going a little bit farther in and using the cross member on the subframe, and they're damaging those motor mounts because there's some fluid filled. They're fluid filled motor mounts with some membranes in there. When you push up on that, I think you may damage the motor mount. Some people say no, but I wouldn't do it. I don't do it. So anyway, next view will be, we'll go underneath. We'll look at how it's the motor is supported. Then we'll come back upside and I'll show you how to take your air filter out, the air filter housing out, and gain access to the top side of the motor mounts. Okay, we're going to go down under the car now and look at where I've supported the motor. Right on that ridge, I think, is a really good place. And in case my jack fails, I've put a jack stand under here as well. But you want to go ahead and support the engine before you try to remove any of these motor mount bolts, because that engine is hanging by that stud on either side. You don't want your engine to fall and damage the car. Okay, so we'll go back upside on top side and we'll remove the air filter, and I'll show you how to do the top portion of the motor mount removal, and then we'll come down to the bottom, we'll look at the bottom, and then we'll actually remove the bottom nuts first, and then we'll go to top side, remove the top bolts, and then we'll install the new motor mounts, and it's pretty easy. So next we'll be up top side. Okay, back up top side, and we're looking at the back of the air filter. If you look right down off in here, right here, it's the mount bolt that holds the air filter in place. You want to remove that bolt. It's 13 millimeters, and also loosen the hose clamp. I'll show you that over here. On the other side, right here on the mass airflow meter, there's two hose clamps. Only do the one that's closest to you. The one on this side, it's right here, and we'll loosen that. Take the flathead screwdriver, so it's right here. Little hose clamp, and once you loosen the hose clamp and remove that 13 millimeter bolt, you can remove the air filter. Now, removing the air filter is it's very easy. So I'm going to do that right now while you watch, so you can see how easy it is, and I'll talk you through it. So I've already loosened that 13 millimeter. Take that out, remove that bolt. I just put mine in a magnetic bowl here. Then you take your flathead and you loosen up that hose clamp on this side, and I've already done that really, this side of the mass airflow meter. Then you wiggle your air filter just a little bit, the housing, and you rotate it up to about 90 degrees, like so. You rotate it up like this, and then it just comes right out. Just real easy. And there you go. Okay? Piece of cake. Once that air filter is removed, you now have access to the top of your motor mount. The only other thing you need to do to make it easier, do you hear the motor mounts right here? These big silver things here. Here's one on the left side, and we go over here, right side of the engine. This is the right side. So the only other thing I would do, or I do, is this this white pipe hose here, this rubber hose. You just take these little spring clamps here off, and they're really easy to take off. So you take it off like this, and then a little trick I learned for the rest of it, just push down a little bit like so. Push down and rotate, and the other side pops right out really, really easy. Cool little trick. Okay, and I'll take this and put it in the spring in the magnetic bowl here too. And then you just work that out. I've already had it out, so mine came out real easy. And this can be moved around to when you loosen these two 13 millimeter top bolts on the motor mount, so you have access to the rear one. Put some light down off in here. There's one in the back. So there's another 13 millimeter in the back. So there's one here, and on the front side there's one right there. A little bit too much light. On the right there's two of them. I think you can see those, both of those. You don't need to take this one in the back loose. This one right here, you don't need to take that loose, because that just holds down this this bracket that the hose, that the motor mount is bolted to, and that bolts to the frame. So just leave that there. Only the two 13 millimeters. So now let's go underneath and look at the 18 millimeter. So the location of it, if you look at the exhaust pipe here, just go straight down, just like this. Straight down. And look straight up. And you'll see it right there. That bolt straight up, it's right between the cylinder head and the muffler. And they're in the same place on both sides. Let's go look at the other side so you have a reference. Okay, so here's the left side. Here's the left side. And we're going to go straight down under the car. And you look straight up again. And it's right between the muffler and the cylinder head. And these bottom ones are 18 millimeter. And the torque on the bottom ones is 40 foot-pounds to retorque them, and the torque on the top bolts 18 foot-pounds. And I always use some blue Loctite, because you really don't want these coming loose on when you're driving. Okay, so now I'm going to take them both out and put the new ones in. So now I've taken out the bottom nut on both motor mounts and the two top bolts on both motor mounts. So now I'll show you how difficult it is to remove the motor mount. Just go in like so. Here it is. That's what it looks like, removed. So here's the old left motor mount. Let's go back over on the right side and remove that. And there it is. These are the old motor mounts, and these are the new NYPPDs. They're going to take their place. So next I'll be showing the installation of the new motor mounts. Now what you want to do is you want to take your stud here, install it, and you want to measure it and make the length the same as your old one. See, you want to lay them down on a bench and put the stud in and measure the length from the flange here to the tip and have them the same length, unless your old one is so damaged that it gives you a false distance. But you want to do that so that when you install it, you have about the same amount of thread on the bottom for that bottom nut as you did originally on the OEM stock motor mount. Okay, so now I'm going to install the new mount, and I'll show you how. Hey YouTube, welcome to another session with the motor mounts for the NYPPD motor mounts. I'm going to show you a little feature that is really cool. These motor mounts can be installed by leaving the spacer in place or by removing it. All you have to do is adjust how the mount itself is assembled, and I'll show you that right now. I want to pull the camera in a little bit closer so you can really see the detail of how I put this together. So I'll be right back. Okay, so once you take your original OEM mount out, it'll look just like this. as we saw earlier. And then you just take your NYPPD mount in this configuration with the long portion pointing down, okay, with the cap on top, long down. And we're going to go over here. You just put it in like this. Just like that. That's what it looks like. And then you take your original bolts, one in the front, one in the back. And you bolt it down, and once it's mounted, that's what it looks like. Now we'll take a look at the other side and see what it looks like mounted without the spacer. So as you can see, this is the left side now. The long portion is pointing upwards, and the spacer is removed. The mount is mounted directly on the frame, no spacer. So there you go. Two different ways to effectively mount the NYPPD replacement rear engine motor mount on the 996 Porsche 911, and this happens to be turbo. So here's the stock motor mounts here, the NYPPDs here, and I'm going to establish the distance that this stud is out of the mount by comparing it to my original motor mount distances. And once I do that, I'll put some blue Loctite on both ends of the thread, one that goes into the mount here, and the other one that is going to accept the nut, the 18 millimeter nut on the bottom. So I'll do that now. Okay, gonna go ahead and put some blue Loctite on these. I have the paste style so it doesn't drip all over the place. And that'll be enough. And then I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to match here. Okay, so that's about right. Just so you can look at it here. I'm giving mine a little bit more distance, which is fine. So that's easier for me to make sure I clear the bottom. And that should be good. All right. And of course we'll do the other one. I won't make you sit here and watch me do that. So our next shot will be installing these in the car. Okay, we're back at the car, and I'm installing the mounts. I got them all lengthened correctly. Now, there's a little square portion here on the bottom here that goes into a square hole in the frame of the car. This moves pretty easily. It just turns within this rubber bushing portion, and you might have to turn it a little bit to get it to line up with the hole in the car. So when you install it, make sure you put your washer in with the beveled side down. Put it on like that, okay, and it goes up past push it in a little bit. It goes up past the square portion that goes down into the frame to hold everything in place when you go to tighten down your stud. That's a little note. And then just install it. right hole? No, I don't. And you just turn it until the little square portion gets in the hole. Once that gets in there, good to go. Okay, the motor mounts are all installed. We're all done and getting ready to lower the vehicle. This is what they look like installed. This is the right side. Get a good look at that. And this is the left side. See if I can pull this down. Get a little bit better view. Here we go. You see both. Get that light right, man. But they went in fairly easily. A couple of tips. One, when you're installing these, the little square, I guess you call it a peg on the bottom of the new mount that goes in the square hole on the frame, the flange, the part where the bolts go through, the flange on the new mount does not turn that square bolt. The round portion on top, that portion right there, this portion right here, turns that square peg to go into the square hole. Once you get it in the hole, turn the flange independently. And if it looks like, if the hole is too low, that means you have to jack the engine up a bit to make it flush with the frame, so that everything lines up nice and flush. Another tip, and even more importantly, the original bolts, these that I took out, are too long. Don't reuse these. They're twice as long as they need to be. You need about 1.25 inches. I went up to Ace and got 1.25 inch replacements, because when you take that spacer out, these bolts are so long they will go down and hit the frame of the car. They'll go all the way through the holes and hit the frame. So you need to get shorter bolts, 1.25 inch bolts, to replace these when you reinstall the new motor mount. And I think that's pretty important. But there they are, NYPPDs. Getting ready to lower the vehicle and take it out for a test drive. And I hope this helps somebody else that wants to upgrade their motor mounts, or if their stock motor mounts have failed.